Aloha, guys. So maybe you're interested in a career in law enforcement, and maybe more specifically, a career with the Honolulu Police Department. Well, my name is Officer Maya, and I'm currently an officer with HPD. I've been a police officer about 6 years. Prior to that, I was in the United States Army for 23 years. So I do have some experience when it comes to the military side and a little bit from the police side. If you guys want to discuss either one of those, my military experience and all that stuff, how that helped from transitioning from military to police, I'm an open book. We can talk about that. Just leave any comments below. But let me first start off with saying that I am not a recruiter with HPD. Everything that we will discuss, everything that I will say in these videos is just my personal opinion and my personal experiences. I'm not going to gatekeep anything. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to give you the do's and don'ts and my honest opinions, what we can talk about. We can talk about the culture of Hawaii. We can talk about the culture of policing in Hawaii. We can talk about the different crimes that happen in Hawaii versus mainland stuff. We can talk about any of that stuff, and I'll give you my best opinion and my best experiences that I can, okay? So first off, if you are interested in a career in law enforcement, specifically HPD, like I said, first thing you have to do is you got to go to the website and you have to apply. So I'm going to go to my notes because I tend to ramble sometimes. So I'm going to go to my notes, and anything that we discuss, I will leave a link down below so you can personally go to yourself and you can look over it and make sure it's something that you want to do. So bare minimum requirements. Okay, so when you do apply for HPD, these are the bare minimum requirements that you need to look for to make sure that you do qualify and that you are eligible to apply. So obviously the bare minimum is 20 years of age at the time of the application, okay? So by the time you apply, when you apply, you have to be at least 20 years of age. Now, the second part of that is you have to be 21 years of age by the time you graduate the academy. Okay, so when I went through my class, I believe we had 3 that were 20 and then they turned 21 before the date we graduated. So that's a requirement. That's one of the bare minimums. And there is no upper age limit. Okay, so that's something we can discuss later on as well, is that when I came in, I was 44. I ended up graduating. I was the oldest one in my class. So there is no upper age limit. Now, my intent on these videos, I want to make a series of videos. So I want to walk you through the beginning processes, like applying for it and all the stuff that comes after, all the way through the police academy. So kind of like a day-to-day look on what to kind of expect as you go through the academy, all the way on to FTO, which is a field training officer program, fourth watch. And then when you finally get assigned to your districts, we can talk about all that kind of stuff. We can talk about my personal experiences and everything that I've gone through. Because when I was looking through the department, there was really no videos that kind of had a point of view of a first person that was in the police department at the time to kind of help you and just kind of see where this would lead you and where to go from there, okay? So back to the application. So those are some of the bare minimums, right? Obviously. Now, the other one very important is firearms. Must be able to meet federal and state eligibility requirements to possess a firearm. So you got to make sure you are in compliance with that. Now, the state of Hawaii is very kind of strict on possessing firearms and who can't, right? So if you've ever been kind of diagnosed with a mental illness, like from a doctor, let's say like PTSD or anything like that, it might be kind of difficult, okay, to be able to obtain a license to carry a firearm in the state of Hawaii. That's from personal experience. So sometimes you might have to go to a doctor and get reevaluated and have the doctor state that at that time you're okay, that you've been cured or whatever, that you do not possess those things anymore. So that's very important. You need to know that. Okay. So once you do apply, you do this all online, they're going to send you an email. Okay. They're going to give you a time and date of where to go and take the written test. Now, it could be at different locations. There's a holiday in town you go to. Sometimes it's at the police academy in Waipahu. It's going to give you a date and time. Now, it's very important to look at that date and time because there are people, and I've seen it personally, that will go to the wrong place or they'll show up on the wrong date and time. If you want to take this serious, you have to make sure you pay attention to detail because from the moment you walk in that door, the recruiting team is evaluating you. Just keep that in your head. As soon as you walk in, they are evaluating you whether or not that you're going to be good for the job. So paying attention to detail is very important. Obviously in policing, we need to pay attention to detail, okay? Because sometimes this information is very crucial that we need to know. So when you go take the test, I believe it's about a 2-hour test, right? They're going to give you a booklet. They're going to sit you down. They're going to give you the basic rules and instructions, and they're going to go over it, okay? And they're going to tell you to go. Now, some of the items and some of the stuff that's on the test are you got observation and memory, written communication, reading understanding, reasoning, analytical ability, and biodata. So basically, in a nutshell, you're going to go over grammar, you're going to go over like reading comprehension, you're going to go over like memory. So some of the examples, like when I first started my test, you're going to open it up. There's going to be like a cartoon drawing maybe of a city or an intersection. It's going to be all different kinds of stuff. You're going to have clock towers, you're going to have cars parked on the side, people walking dogs or whatever. Going to give you a few minutes to kind of look at that, trying to memorize as much as you can, what you think would be important details. You flip the page, there's going to be questions on like what time was on the clock tower, how many dogs was that female walking when she was crossing the street, what was the street name. So retainability of that information is also important, okay? You don't need to be 100%, get every single one of them right, but try to remember that stuff. Try to practice that stuff now. Try looking at something and then remembering what you saw. Okay, we also have like grammar and things of that nature, right? So they're going to go over a list, kind of like school, right? College or high school. They're going to give you certain words like there, they are. You're going to have to kind of know the difference of what those kind of means, right? It's just basic stuff. This is basic high school educational stuff. Now, reading and understanding, they might give you like a short essay you read, and you're going to have to maybe read and answer some questions, kind of like reading comprehension of what you just read, right? So you're going to have to be able to retain some kind of information here. Now, biodata is kind of weird, right? So biodata kind of gives you and gives them an understanding of maybe what kind of personality you are, maybe what kind of personality that you have, okay? So it's kind of like an algorithm. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad or if it's actual like good data or not, I'm not sure. But some of the questions they ask might be a little weird, like who was your favorite president? What do you think about George Washington? It might be some kind of like off the wall questions. You just kind of answer the best you can. So that's something else that comes with all these things. The whole process you go through is truthfulness. Make sure you answer everything as truthful as possible. Don't try to hide anything. Don't try to gaslight anything because it will come out. So you have to be truthful. So when you answer these questions, just answer as truthful as possible. There's really no right or wrong answer when it comes to this biodating stuff. You just answer it and it kind of gives them a snapshot of maybe what kind of personality you have. Take that for what it is. Okay, something else that's very important. We live in Hawaii, right? It's very relaxed environment. It's very just kind of a cruise environment. Get it? Totally awesome, right? That note, when you go take the test, on that paper that they send you or the email they send you, there is going to be a dress code, like a dress attire, right? What is approved and what's not approved. Believe it or not, you are applying for a career with the city and county of Honolulu. You have to take this serious. Like I said, you're being evaluated from the time you walk in the door by the recruiting team and other officers. Don't show up with tank top, shorts, slippers. I've seen it personally. When I took my test, people showed up in tank tops, shorts, slippers, all kinds of stuff, okay? You're applying for a career. Don't do that. And it will tell you on the paper, on the email, what you need to wear. So some of the acceptable, I'm gonna read straight from here. So there's no miscommunication, no confusion. So some of the approved attire would be, and this goes through the whole process, okay? So when you're going through the interview, the polygraph, it will tell you what to wear, like wear like aloha attire, aloha business or whatever, or maybe they might tell you to actually wear a suit and tie in some of the process. You have to read it and pay attention. All right, so here's some of the stuff that I'm gonna read straight from the website when it comes to appropriate attire to wear when you go do your test, all right? And through the whole process, you wanna make sure you have the appropriate attire. So some of the appropriate attire is aloha shirts, okay? So obviously aloha shirts. Our collared shirt are professional, for females, professional blouses, okay? Nothing revealing, no V-neck kind of stuff, but something you'd wear in a professional work environment. Dress pants or slacks. Conservative skirts or dresses for females, okay? So obviously don't come in wearing some sundress or anything like that. You're in a professional environment, applying for a career, make sure you look the part. Covered footwear, big one, guys. People come with slippers on, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you have covered footwear, okay? Don't gotta be fancy, don't gotta be some kind of Parada or whatever shoes, but just make sure you have maybe some all black tennis shoes on or something if you don't. Or go to Ross, get some kind of dress, cheap dress shoes or something, so you can wear it through the whole process. You can wear denim or pants or jeans, right? So denim jeans or pants, you can wear. Now, here's some of the inappropriate attire. So t-shirts, V-necks, or tank tops. Obviously, right? Some of this is common sense, but like I said, some of these guys showed up wearing this exact same stuff when I took my test. Cargo pants, leggings, or shorts. So females especially, don't be wearing leggings like you're gonna go work out at the gym after you take the test, all right? Professional. We got denim pants that are ripped, torn, or distressed. So you can wear denim pants or jeans as long as they're clean and they look good, okay? They can't be torn, they can't be distressed, like acid wash stuff, showing my age way back in the day, but make sure that's just professional looking, all right? Now you also have, slippers, obviously no slippers. or no non-covered or open toe footwear. All right, some of this is common sense, some of this stuff, but sometimes people maybe lack a little bit of that. Okay, so let's say congratulations, you passed the written test, right? You usually find out, I think within a couple of days after you take it. I believe it's 70 or above. You might have to check on that. I'm not too sure. I can get back with you on that, but I believe it's 70% or above. You've passed that. You're going to get another email stating that you're going to be taking the PRA, right? The Physical Readiness Assessment. So we're going to go over the basic details on that. So which is basically a physical fitness agility kind of test. So once you pass the written test, you're going to move on to the PRA, okay? So this is something they also look for. So kind of work on this now. If you're a little bit out of shape, you kind of been stagnant, kind of haven't been doing much lately, get on the website and look at the different events and try to start practicing this stuff, okay? And honestly, it's really not that hard, but if you haven't been physically active and you're really not physically active in a very long time, it could be a little difficult. So the first thing we're gonna go over is the agility run. So basically they kind of set some cones up. You gotta lay on your stomach, you have to run, weave through the cones, come back. It all explains it on the website, which I'll link down below. But for the standards you have to pass, you have to get 21.6. So you have to pass that one time with 21.6 seconds. Okay, that's just to get into the academy. That's to pass everything. Now there's gonna be a different standard of time when you're in the academy to graduate, all right? So you're gonna have like 3 different PRAs throughout the academy. You have to pass them, right? So you have to pass with a different time. So this one right here, you have to pass with 18 seconds. But right now, I'll just concern yourself with just passing the initial PRA just to get into the academy to get your job offer, okay? So the first one's gonna be the shuttle run. Second event will be push-ups, right? So just a basic standard military style push-up, down all the way, up, can't be on your knees, that kind of stuff, okay? So those you have to pass, you have to get 24 in 1 minute. So it's just 24 push-ups in 1 minute. That's the standard to get to the academy. Now, once you graduate, it'll be a different standard. But just remember, 24 push-ups in 1 minute. Now, the next event will be sit-ups, okay? So basically standard sit-ups. You gotta do 24 of those in 1 minute as well. So just 24 push-ups or sit-ups, 24 sit-ups in 1 minute. Now, the next event is going to be the 1.5 mile run. So for the PRA standards, like I said, to get into the academy, to pass all that stuff, you have to do 1.5 mile run in 21 minutes. Now, if you haven't ran or anything like that in a long time, it might be a little difficult, but if you just have any kind of athletic ability, maybe just kind of you work out daily or just every few days or whatever it is, 1.5 miles is really not that long in 21 minutes. You can honestly walk that. But I would suggest just do the best you can and make that run in 21 minutes. I'd like to also state that this is also for lateral transfer. So if you're looking to come from the mainland, maybe you want to be a police officer in Hawaii, this all kind of goes in the same order you're going to do, okay? But it'll just be in a series of like 2 trips. So you apply, you'll fly out here on your own dime. You're going to take the test, the PRA, stuff like that, and then you'll go back and then you'll come back another time to finish out the rest of the process if you pass everything. So it is open to lateral transfers as well. Now, for both, after you pass the written test and the PRA, I'm just gonna go over real quickly what the next steps will be, okay? In another video, I will break it down more specifically on what to expect when you go to these different steps, okay? Because I didn't know when I went through, so it was all brand new. Your anxiety level is high, obviously, because you really want this job, and you want to really make yourself look good, and you want to be able to just perform well. Had no idea what I was getting into for each step, okay? So my next video, I'll talk about that, but these are the steps after you pass the written and after you pass the PRA. So you do the entrance exam, the physical ability test, so the PAT or physical readiness assessment. Okay, so those will be the first 2 steps, obviously. After that is the personal history statement, all right? So it's gonna be a personal history statement record. I'll talk about that in my next video, what to expect on that. Gonna have to do some legwork and have to look up some old addresses, where you've been, because they go way back, okay? It's all gonna be digital, but you need to have some information of past employers, phone numbers, names, dates of where you've worked since you're like 15, all that kind of stuff we'll talk about at another time. They're gonna do a background investigation, all right? So they're gonna run a background check on you. Oral board interview. So you will have an oral board interview with detectives. Then you'll get a conditional offer of employment. So after all that, you will get a conditional offer of employment. So they'll say, yes, you passed all that, so we're gonna give you a conditional offer. Now, the next steps after the conditional offer, you're halfway there, you're gonna do a psychological exam, you'll do a psychological interview with the doctor, with the city county doctor, and you'll do a polygraph exam, so basically a lie detector test, okay? And then you'll do a medical exam at the end. So basically, it's just like any kind of job you're going to have a physical, eyes, ears, they're going to check everything, right? So those would be kind of the last steps you do. And then after you pass all that, you will get a final offer of employment. All this is on the website. If you don't believe me, you can go on here and check yourself, but you will get a final offer of employment. So congratulations. They're going to give you an academy date. They're going to give you an academy class and then tell you when to show up. Okay. So that's it for my first video. Just going to give you a very quick snapshot of what to expect from a first person point of view, someone who just went through it 6 years ago, and what to expect when you go to these different interviews and these different exams and stuff like that. My next video, I'll break it down more of what all the psychological exam talks about, the polygraph, all that kind of stuff I'll talk about in my next video. So until then, if you guys have any comments and anything that pertains to what I've talked to so far, maybe some future questions for later on, hit me down below in the comments. I'll answer the best I can. Like I said, my personal experiences and my personal opinions. And then like I said, I'm gonna make a series of videos. We're gonna talk about all that stuff. You guys want me to talk about the culture of Hawaii, because it is very different from the mainland. If you want me to talk about the policing, the differences between mainland policing and crime and Hawaii policing and crime, because there are pros and there are cons, right? We do live in paradise, but we have our problems here as well. If we want to talk about the cost of living, is a very important one. Okay, so we also can talk about the salary of the police department, which I will actually right now. Let's go over that one while I'm here. Because I believe, obviously salary, right? We all do any kind of job. Sorry, I got to find it. We all do a job, right? Maybe we love the job, maybe we don't. But if you want to get into policing, it's obviously to help people. And if you have that service type of personality where you want to just help and serve people, that's important as well, right? Especially as a police officer. But don't get it twisted. It's about money as well. Some people are going to be like, no, you're going to do it for the love of the job. Yeah, okay. But you also got to do it and be able to survive and to be able to support your family. So starting July 1st, a few days ago, 2026, the salary base pay salary for HPD while you're going through the academy is $83,808, okay? So that's what you're gonna start off with. Now, it gradually goes up once you graduate the academy. There's other incentives on here. So you have standard of conduct. So with standard of conduct, it could be up to $91,712 a year. Standard of conduct is an extra X amount of money a month, right? So when you become a police officer, you get your badge and stuff. We have policies where we have to carry our badge, ID card, our weapon or our service weapon or supplementary weapon, and handcuffs when we're off duty, right? So we're technically never really off duty. We have to carry those stuff by policy, but they compensate us that with giving us extra money a month for that. So your pay goes up a little bit from there. You're starting off at $40.29 an hour. That's not bad. Not really without a college education and any kind of experience. You can start off in a career with HPD for $40.29 an hour. Now, some additional pays may include, so as we talked about, standard of conduct already, night differential. So I work night shifts, right? So we're on a 3-13 schedule. I work 3 days a week, 13-hour shifts, okay? Now, I work nights. So you get a little bit of extra cash, in your check for working nights, because it is harder on your body. It's more demanding. You can't see and stuff like that. So you give a little bit more compensation for that. Now, we also have overtime, okay? So overtime is 1.5 times your base pay, your hourly rate, all right? So 1.5 times. Right now, there's plenty of overtime for most districts, because we are short. If you guys didn't know, we got a new chief recently, and the biggest problem that we're having is this retainability for retention for officers that are in and recruiting people. I think we're short about 400 to 500 sworn officer personnel. And we have about, I think, 300 to 400 that are eligible to retire as of right now. So it is a problem. So most districts are short on personnel. So usually daily, at least where I work on the east side, there is daily opportunity for overtime to be able to attain overtime. All right, so some of the other incentives, right? So we have meal allowance for overtime work. So if you do work overtime, it's a simple form that you do on the computer, and you'll be compensated for your meals when you're on overtime. I believe you can be compensated up for 3 meals, and I think it's like $8 to $10 a meal. A lot of people don't do it, kind of humbug, right? They don't I don't want a nickel and dime. Nickel and dime. If you're entitled to that through the union and SHOPO and everything else, and the department offers it, nickel and dime it. Just put in the paperwork. It takes 5 minutes, and you can get your meal deductions, or you can get your meal, subsidized meals for your overtime. But I digress. Let me go back. We also have, hazard pay. So the guys ride around on motorcycles as solo bikes, right? They're basically mostly for traffic enforcement. But being on a motorcycle, especially in our profession, is very dangerous. So you do get hazard pay monthly for that. It's a little bit of change. I'm not sure exactly how much it is. I've never been a solo bike, but you do get compensated for that. So on top of the salary and standard of conduct, there are different incentives and different kind of pays you can get. All right. So a lot of people make a lot of their money off of overtime. Get it while you can, because sometimes that can dry up and they just won't have overtime available, but get it in while you can. So these are some of the things that you can look forward to once you become a police officer, okay? So there is potential for growth. There's potential to make good living while you're out here or while you're a police officer in Hawaii, okay? So that pretty much wraps it up, guys. Like I've said before, if you have any comments on what we discussed right now, or maybe some future comments that you'd like to talk about, leave a comment down below. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll give you my honest opinion from my experiences, the best ability that I can, okay? Give you the pros and cons or whatever we need to talk about. Now, my next video, we're going to talk about the process after you pass the exam and the physical readiness assessment test. We're going to talk about just everything you go through after that, the oral interview, the psychological interview, your personal history, data sheet, all that kind of stuff we'll talk about. With that being said, if you are interested in a career and you do want to apply to take the exam, on July 13th, at 5 o'clock, there is going to be an exam prep class, okay? So I'm going to leave the link down below. You do have to get on there and you have to register for the class. I highly advise you attend that if you are serious and you want to take this and make this a career. Guys, until then, take care of each other. Just live life with aloha, and I'll talk to you next time. Shoots.